So many of the dynamics of awakening seem prone to produce resentment. Among them, it produces resentment when we possess enough knowledge to see others' faults, but not enough to correct our own. We have this lesser self that's never going away, and it has a very strong tendency to blame everyone but us for our problems. After a while, that's just a drag. We can see it, but we can't fix it. It produces resentment when we get rid of self before developing virtue. There are spaces where learning to live with less, developing the virtue of prudence, is a more important objective than acquiring stuff. Learning to bear weight is more important than being free of weight. Fortitude. All of those spaces are tough spaces, but they're still spaces that, like, the sort of logos can be calling us to be in, and those are rough. It produces resentment to be called into the unknown without resources. Jesus sent his apostles out 2 by 2, and he said, don't bring stuff with you. And that's a rough spot, right? Because you are committing to being resource poor. It produces resentment to be called to bear weight other people don't bear. You're constantly saying, well, he doesn't have to do what I have to do, and he's getting more of what he needs than I'm getting. Which is a rough thing to watch your ego doing, even though you're here willingly to learn from a teacher who set up these parameters. It is a thing that produces resentment to need to pick your suffering. Sometimes both your options suck, and you pick the one that seems best and you go with it, and that's a rough, terrible, not fun thing. It also produces resentment when suffering is a necessary part of getting out of suffering. I've heard it said, the only way out is through. That's a rough thing, because suffering is terrible, and you want there to be an option that isn't terrible. Now, when all the stuff sucks that's supposed to be beautiful, ego is shocked, surprised, sickened, disgusted, etc. by the terrible nature of it all. And Christ becomes the key to correcting that. You are not a self who angles for need and desire fulfillment with a bunch of others. If you think that way, you're just going to cause yourself stress. On the level that doesn't cause stress, your own Christ within is breaking a bread that is Christ with strangers who are also Christ. And even though it might be just barely meeting your needs, it ends up being enough, because it's oneness just sort of soothing the sort of thought stressors, the nervous system stressors that you're creating in yourself by the way that you think, the dualistic ways you think. So on one level, you're just learning to breathe, listen, and feel in different kinds of crises without the stressors ceasing. On another level, Christ becomes your higher self, the Father becomes your ability to meta-think, the Spirit develops our subtlety of feelings so that we can eventually feel things like our energetic body alongside our pain without either of them ceasing. And it becomes sort of a personality that you develop who guides your awakening. And it is you, it is also God. Now, as this I don't know, persona develops, coping happens. But as we get in deep with the Christ within, as we start to learn from the Father within, as we develop a relationship of following the Spirit within, it happens less. And you end up spending less time in tight spots. And over the long haul, I suppose that is as good as it gets. That too is a little bit rough because you want your life to change by the stressors, the exterior stressors ceasing. And if they don't, it's rough, right? But you change within the stressors. And that is sort of the key to a Christ-led triune God within mode of enlightenment. So it's good news, but it's also good news in which very little has changed. And it's okay to feel odd about that. I hope. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.